Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today I'm going to be bringing you a Bravo deck tech. Bravo has been my main for a long time. You guys probably know me for my Bravo and Guardian content. I just made a Victor video a few weeks ago. If you haven't already checked that out, it's still a fairly strong deck, I think. There's probably some optimization since then, but it's quite good. But today I'm going to bring you my main and favorite hero, Bravo, who I've made many deck techs for before. I played him at both Worlds and Pro Tours I've attended. He's really fun hero, and I think he got quite a lot from heavy hitters. The deck, I'm naming it Boast Bravo in honor of the card Boast, which is a pretty exciting new card from heavy hitters. Probably the one I've had the most fun with so far. And I think the deck has got quite a lot of significant upgrades from the set. He was already considered by not everyone, but some people to be one of the best heroes in the meta, and I think he's only gotten better with the new cards. So let's get into it. If you haven't seen before, Bravo, like I said, has been my main for a very long time, so I'm going to give probably a lot more detail than I do on my normal deck techs, where with most of my deck techs, I probably put in a few dozen games of practice, but Bravo, I've played hundreds, so I feel like I can give a lot more depth into each of the card choices and optimizations. So the equipment suite has even changed quite a lot. Heading into Last Worlds in Barcelona, most people, including previous world champion and Pro Tour champions Michael Hamilton and Michael Fang, were playing Bravo with Fyendal Spring Tunic. So this does a lot for the deck. If you haven't seen Fyendal Spring Tunic, it's been around since the beginning of Flesh and Blood, but basically every 3 turns it gives you a free resource. Bravo's a pretty defensive deck in a lot of ways, so you're usually going to get I don't know, at least 3 to 4, if not more, uses of this. You'll usually get 9 or more turns, and so you're going to get quite a lot of free resources. But the important thing here is that Bravo does not have a lot of even pitch cards. His most powerful cards are usually a blue plus a resource or 2 blues plus a resource. So he really benefits a lot from having an additional resource. His big powerful attacks cost 4, 7, 4, and another 7, right? So all of these are 3s plus a number, plus 1. So the Tunic is really important there because you can't just pitch blues for any of these cards. You have to have a little extra, and Tunic lets you kind of cheat a little and pitch a whole one entire less card, which is really significant in Flesh and Blood, because you can block for 3 with that card instead of having to pitch it, and now you've basically gained 3 life off of that Tunic counter. Which is pretty significant. So people have been on that for a while, but with heavy hitters came the new token Vigor, which should be down here. I guess it technically came in the Ultimate Pit Fight thing that just came out, but it officially released into the main formats with this, which says at the start of your turn, destroy this, then gain a resource, which, as you might notice, is pretty similar to what Tunic is doing. It's just giving you an extra resource. And so if you can get a Vigor in Bravo, it's kind of giving you a Tunic counter in between your Tunic turns, right? You only get Tunic every 3 turns, so that's 2 turns when you don't have it. It'd be really nice to have it on those turns, and Vigor helps with that a lot. You don't really have any way to generate it in the equipment suite, so we'll get to the ways to generate that in a bit. My cat is invading the video. Wow. Bye, cat. So let's look at the other equipment choices. So Bravo for a very long time, and I still have it in the sideboard, was on Crown of Providence. This is pretty important for Bravo. Sometimes you get hands with too many reds and it lets you sort them. And also you're usually arsenaling your very powerful attacks in Bravo. And so if your opponent sends Arsenal Disruption, you're going to want to be able to protect it. So Crown of Providence does that. But there's a new powerful generic headpiece with Balance of Justice, which also blocks 2, but then gives you the effect of drawing a card if your opponent has drawn 2 or more. This is pretty important, especially because Bravo can struggle into both Fi and Brute, and they both play draw 2 effects in the form of Blood Rush Bellows and Artivore. And then he also has a little bit of trouble with Dromai, and she plays Tome of Imperial Flame, which is another draw 2. So most of his bad matchups have cards that are core to their game plan that draw 2. So this will basically block 2 and then give you a free card at some point, which is incredibly powerful. So Balance of Justice, I think, is worth the slot. I think it's more important now probably than having Crown of Providence. If you're going to need one, I think Balance of Justice is more important since It's always going to block 2, and then in your good matchups, it's just much better than Crown of Providence, or in your bad matchups, I should say. But for now, I have Crown of Providence in the deck as well, because sometimes it's better than Balance of Justice. Civic Steps, these have been the boots for a while. They block 2 and then 1. They're just strictly better than anything else he can run in this slot. Tunic, we've talked about. Gauntlets of Iron Will are an upgrade from Crater Fist that he was running before. Not a huge upgrade, but definitely a slight upgrade. Crater Fist blocked the same amount, but didn't really have any other effect going for them, and you rarely ever activated the effect. But these say, when this defends, the next time an attack would gain power this chain link, instead it gains that much -1. Pretty helpful against any deck that runs reactions, against Katsu, any warrior, any deck that gets gaining plus power on their attacks. If you can predict when they're going to do it, you can block with this and negate 1 extra damage. So if you block really well and you're able to predict your opponent well, this can block potentially 5 damage during the game by subtracting an extra power each time it blocks, which is quite powerful to be able to block 5 with your arm piece. And then both our hammer and shield are different here. So we've got Miller's Grindstone. This is, for the most part, a more consistent and powerful Titan's Fist. So Titan's Fist attacked for 3, and if you had pitched a card with cost 3 or greater, it attacked for 4. This always attacks for 4, and when it hits, it clashes. If you win, you destroy the top card of your opponent's deck, but if you lose, this gets a -1 counter. So as soon as you lose a clash, this becomes a lot worse. It's only coming in for 3, which makes it not a strictly worse Titan's Fist, but usually a worse Titan's Fist. But we are one of the highest overall power decks in the format. Maybe KO has a little more power on average than us in their cards, but we have 10s and 11s and 9s and lots of high power cards, so we'll typically be winning the clashes, if not at least tying them. And if you're winning a clash, this is just a strictly better Titan's Fist because it has an on-hit. It's getting rid of one of your opponent's cards. You can mill really powerful cards if you hit a Blood Rush Bellows or an Artivore or any of those powerful cards, like I said. You're really getting ahead because then you can potentially fatigue your opponent since they lose a lot of their overall damage their deck can put out. So this actually has an incentive for your opponent to block it, whereas Titan's Fist was just damage, which is a huge benefit. The other benefit is that it doesn't matter what blue you pitched for this. So if you're pitching a blue that costs 0 or 2 or 1, this will still attack for 4, which is also pretty significant because we're playing 2 blues now, so 6 total blues that aren't 3 cost. So sometimes you're going to wish you had this because Titan's Fist would have only attacked for 3. So pretty significant upgrades in a few different ways. Obviously, if you're losing the clash, it's much worse, but just don't lose your clashes, and then it's a better weapon. Speaking of not losing your clashes, we've got Stonewall Impasse. So this one's a bit of a head scratcher at first. It's in most ways a strictly worse Steel Braid. Yeah, Steel Braid Buckler is the old shield, which just blocked for 2 and then 1 with Temper. This does that, but not consistently. It says when this defends, clash with the attacking hero. If you win, this gets +1 until end of turn. So if you lose the clash, this is just going to block for 1 and then be destroyed. If you win the clash, it'll block for 2, and then the next time it'll block for 1, potentially if you win that clash as well. So it's a strictly worse shield in most senses, but it combos with our new card Boast here. Boast is a new Majestic. It's a block card, so it can only block or pitch. It is a blue, which makes it super flexible. So it can pitch for 3 resources, it can block for 3, and it gets the effect, this gets +X while defending, where X is twice the number of clashes you won this turn. So the combo here is that as soon as you win 1 clash, this is blocking for 5, which is really above rate, as you probably guess. Most cards block for 3. This already, as a default, blocks for 3, so it's already exactly average. But as soon as you win a clash, it becomes significantly better than any other card blocking in our deck. Even Sink Below and Fate Foreseen, which are like premier block cards, only block for 4. So the combination is you wait to block with Stonewall Impasse until you draw a Boast. Then you win the clash because you're really good at Flesh and Blood. And now you have a blue that is going to block for 5, which is really powerful. If you happen to draw it with one of our other clash cards, we have Clash of Vigor and Test of Vigor, which we'll get to in a second. It can even potentially block for 7, because if you win 2 clashes, it gets +4. That doesn't happen often, but sometimes you can high roll and do that. The other option is to pitch Boast with your other blue Clash of Vigor, and then you can second cycle and win the Clash and block for 5. But more consistently, your shield will always be on the battlefield, so you can get 2 blocks out of this, so at least 2 of your Boasts will block for 5 if you're good at Flesh and Blood and win your clashes. So yeah, that's kind of the combo there. It's basically a more high-rolly version. It has more RNG than just running Steelblade Buckler. That's so hard to say. If you don't want to do the RNG, just play the Buckler. You don't have to do it. It's just something that I think gives him a little variance. Basically, if you lose it, you're basically just starting with 2 less life, which is not that big of a deal. But if you win it, you get a huge advantage, which is really nice. So now that I've talked for 10 minutes about the equipment suite, let's just go through the big changes in the deck. Most of it is pretty standard to what we had before. We've got Chokeslam, Command and Conquer, Crippling Crush, Debilitate, Enlightened Strike, Spinal Crush. All of these were the powerful red attacks that we had before. But we added Test of Vigor here. This is in the place of Sink Below and or Fate Foreseen that was in here before as a 4-block. This one loses the power of being a defense reaction, so you cannot arsenal this, and you can't really stop Dominate with it either, which is a quite significant downside, but the upside is also quite significant. It blocks for 4, and it says, when this defends, clash with the attacking hero, the winner creates a Vigor token. So of course you can lose and give your opponent a Vigor, which sucks to give them a free resource, but the upside is quite huge because I talked about how important 1 extra resource is in Bravo. As soon as you block for 4, you get a resource. Now you can swing Crippling Crush with just 2 blues, Chokeslam with just 1 blue. I mean, the 1 resource is so significant in Bravo, it's really hard to understate how powerful it is. Yeah, so we have this as a new red card. I do miss the defense reaction capabilities of Sink Below. I wish I could arsenal this and block Dominate with it, but we can't. So basically, I still think the upside is worth it. The Vigor is just so powerful that it has taken that slot. Starstruck is pretty standard as well. Every other blue here is standard. We have 3 new blue cards added to the list. What's gone is basically Blue Unmovable, Showtime, and Imposing Visage. Yeah, Showtime, Imposing Visage, Blue Unmovable. So kind of like the Aura package plus Blue Unmovable is gone. Some other stuff that used to be in the list is... all I can think of right now. Maybe blue Fyendel's Fighting Spirit people played. So that's another blue that was in the list at some point. But now we've got these new cards. I kind of talked about Boast already. It mostly synergizes with the Shield and Test of Vigor, and then also our other Clash card, Clash of Vigor. This is even better than Test of Vigor in a lot of ways because it's a blue. So it can just pitch, and that's really flexible and nice. It can just pitch for 3 resources. But it's also a 3-block, and it has the same text as Test of Vigor. This one says, when this defends, clash with the attacking hero, the winner creates a Vigor. So the same exact text as Test of Vigor, but it blocks for 1 less, but it pitches for 3. So it's a better card overall. I think if you're going to cut one, Test of Vigor is much easier to cut because being a red just makes it way less flexible. Clash of Vigor feels like a staple for Bravo now. Getting that extra resource, like I have said a million times, is super, super important, and it's a blue. So like, if you don't end up blocking with it, you just get 3 resources, which is super good. So this is very powerful. It's the other Clash card in the deck. We've got Clash of Vigor and Test of Vigor, and then we've got the Shield, and those are the ways to turn on the bonus block for Boast. The only other card here is Thunk. This is basically just here because it's a 6-power blue, which is important for 2 big reasons. One, of course, is it's a popper for the Illusionist matchup, which is really important to have as many of those as possible. The other reason is for Zealous Belting, which needs you to pitch a card with greater power, and it's 5, so you need as many 6+ blues as you can get. So those are the 2 main reasons. It does actually have nice text, which says when you win a clash revealing this, create a Might token. So if you block with Clash of Vigor, or Test of Vigor, or you hit with Miller's Grindstone, or you block with Stonewall Impasse, you have quite a lot of times when you're clashing. If you ever reveal Thunk and win with it, you get a Might, which just gives you +1 free damage. At the start of your next turn, destroy this, next attack gets +1. So it's a damage version of Vigor. Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, we would play it no matter what, even if we have 0 Clash, just because having 6 power blues is super, super important. But because we have so much Clash in the deck, it's just even better than probably any of the other 6 powers in the deck. Like, it's just strictly better than all of these because you never really care about these, but you actually do kind of care about flipping a thunk on top and getting +1 damage. So that's pretty nice. We are probably a little lighter on blues than, not that much, than what Bravo usually runs. They usually run 37 to 39 is the standard. So we're only one less than 37 at 36. But if you're someone who's used to running 39 blues, we're at a whole 3 blues less than that. But we have a lot of ways to get extra resource now with the Clash of Vigor and Test of Vigor. So we can kind of cheat on blues a little because we're really only needing 1 blue most of the time to do Chokeslam or Debilitate or Command and Conquer. And then we need 2 blues just for Crippling Crush, Starstruck, and Spinal Crush. Sometimes you don't even need 2 blues for Spinal Crush. If you have Tunic and a Vigor, you can play Spinal Crush off of just 1 blue, which is quite powerful. But you're always going to need 2 blues for Crippling Crush and Starstruck. But with 36, we're still going to draw, on average, 2 or more blues per hand because we have over 30 blues in our deck. So we should be fine with all of those powerful cards. And if you don't draw a hand with 2 blues, just Arsenal the Starstruck or Crippling Crush until you draw probably your next hand, which will have 2 blues because most hands should. Now that we're through the main deck, let's just touch quickly on the inventory. We've got Pummel and Zealous Belting for matchups where we need to be more aggressive. Pummel is even played into some of the aggro decks just because Command and Conquer plus Pummel is so powerful, and we can get it off even more consistently now because of Vigor, because usually you're going to want to pitch just 1 blue to play Command and Conquer and Pummel, but of course they cost 4 together, and a blue only pitches for 3, so usually you would have needed Tunic, but now you can of course do it off of a Vigor, so much more often you can go Command and Conquer Pummel, which is quite powerful, but it only blocks for 2, which is a pretty significant downside against aggro when we're going to be blocking a lot, so it's not in all the time, but yeah, it's still very powerful and it's an important part of the deck. Zealous Belting is basically only in when we're the aggro deck, so against Illusionist, Control Dash, in the mirror match, stuff like that, because it, because it is a 2-block and requires a lot of cards, because you're going to want to do this into your Sledge. It only comes in, I believe, in the matchup guide. If you check, I could be wrong, because I have like all of the matchups in here. If you click default matchup, it's not showing up on the screen, I guess, but I have all the matchups in here. We're really only playing Zealous Belting when we have Sledge, so that you can do an 11 damage turn off of 3 cards. And then the 3 red unmovable, we don't have any other defense reactions in the deck, so we do need something against the decks that are going to be a problem. So that is like other Bravos and Azaleas basically are the ones when you want a movable. I think this could be Staunch Response red. That's maybe better, but I'm just sticking with the red unmovable for now. It's a little more consistent at just blocking 8 off of 2 cards, since you're usually going to Arsenal it anyways, whereas red Staunch is often just going to block 7 off of 2 cards, because you don't usually, although sometimes you do, but you don't usually pitch all 3 cards or 2 cards into the red Staunch. The rest of the sideboard, we have the Crown I went over. We're playing Sledge over Anathos, which is a pretty interesting choice. The main reason for this is, once again, because we have so much more Vigor. When you're kind of for the same reason of Sledge Victor, when you have that extra resource, you can Sledge off of just 1 blue, which is really, really powerful, especially in the mirror match. I think in some matchups, Anathos would be better than Sledge, but I think Sledge is better more often than Anathos is, and I haven't really missed Anathos at all, to be honest. We're playing Arcane Lantern. This is basically just for Wizard and Dromai. The really benefit here with Arcane Lantern is it doesn't have a defense value. You can see the Null Rune both have a 0 down here, but Arcane Lantern has nothing, so the Dragon Tumultai, they try to use to destroy your Arcane so they can get free damage in with Burn Them All, but they're not able to destroy Arcane Lantern because it has no defense value, so you will always have an Arcane against Dromai. The Null Rune Boots are for Runeblade, basically, and Wizard, because you'd rather have the boots than the Lantern into Runeblade, and then the gloves are just for Wizard. So into Wizard, you're running all 3. Into Runeblade, you're just running the boots, and into Dromai, you're just running the Lantern. And then Sledge is, once again, when you're the aggressive deck. So usually Sledge comes in with the Zealous Belting, and then also usually comes in with the Pummel, but you'll be able to see that in the matchup guide as well. So that was about 20 minutes, so I think I hopefully got all the information in about the deck. I've been really enjoying it. It's quite powerful, actually. Every time I've blocked 2 with Stonewall Impasse and then blocked 5 with Boast, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit. especially against some of the popular decks right now, like Kasai. She'll pretty often do 2 with her first sword, pitch a blue to Red Blade Runner, for example, which gives her next sword +3, and then she'll swing for 5 with her second sword. So if you block for 2 with the shield on the first sword, then the second sword comes in for 5, you can block for 5 with your boast, and you stopped all 7 of her damage with basically a single card from your hand, which is pretty crazy. So it has a lot of upside. Obviously, there's some RNG involved, but I think in the end, it's more basically the most powerful thing Bravo can be doing at the moment. I do know a lot of people care about budget, and this deck is $800 according to TCG Player right here. So let's go into the budget deck real quick. Some of the cards are pretty important to Bravo that unfortunately can't be in when you make it budget. This budget deck's only $90, so if you do want to try out Bravo, this is a great place to start. Luckily, the shield and weapon are both budget friendly, which is nice, but unfortunately, none of the other equipment is because they're basically all legendaries. The headpiece is nothing really matters too much, except losing Tunic is pretty significant because that resource is really helpful. So we've got Vigor Girth, which kind of gives you a one-time Tunic if you know it's coming. So you can block for 1 with it if you'd like, or at some point you can destroy it to create a Vigor token. If you were going to upgrade this, the first thing I would do basically is to get a Fyendal Spring Tunic. It's a generic, so you'll play it in almost every Flesh and Blood deck, and it's also really important to Bravo. So the rest of the equipment, this is basically the same thing as the other arms, so it's not, this can take the longest. But yeah, I would upgrade to Tunic first, but this is kind of the budget equipment suite. Most of the main deck is the same. I think the main things that are missing are Command and Conquer, which is pretty expensive, Enlightened Strike, and then I think Terra Sunder is out. Those have been replaced by a Red Disable here, which is a different form of Arsenal Disruption, a little more expensive than Command and Conquer, in terms of cost of the card, not US dollars, but still does the job. And then we've got Clash of Might in here, as well as Wallop. So I guess yeah, those are the 3 cards. So there's 3 extra blues in this, which will make your attacking a bit more consistent, but there's not really anything you can swap Enlightened Strike for, and Terra Sunder is just a blue. So Clash of Might is a little more Clash, which gives you Might, and then Wallop gives you a little more value when you reveal it, giving you a Vigor token when you Clash. So you can get double Vigor, which is actually nice. Everything else is basically the same, so the only things that really change in the budget deck are the equipment suite, which is most of the cost of Bravo, and then some of the Majestics, just only 9 cards from the entire rest of the deck. So just, yeah, the Command and Conquer, Enlightened Strike, and Terra Sunder. So 9 total cards, not that many. From the main deck, Command and Conquer is probably the most important one you lose. I don't think Terra Sunder or Enlightened Strike are that important. I mean, they're certainly important, but they're not that important. Command and Conquer is pretty important because of how good it is with Pummel, but of course Tunic makes that better, so you kind of need all 3 of those cards in concert. But yeah, that's enough. Please check out these decks. I think they're really fun. I think as soon as you start blocking with Stonewall Impasse or your other Clash cards and you block with Boast for 7, you're going to be like, wow, this is pretty enjoyable. Even if it's not as consistent, I just think it's really fun, and it is truly more powerful than anything the old version of Bravo could do. And I think this is what Bravo is going to move to from now on. So please go play the deck. Leave some comments below if you have any questions. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.